Week one is officially in the books in major college football. And how about the teams on the West Coast? 13 and 0. It hasn't happened in a long, long time. I think they say 1980, but I think that's just the last time they kept the stat. I think it's like 1930. So what a year that it is out west. And I want to start there on this weekly vlog on major college football. And of course, college football coming from the lens of the West Coast. If you're a fan of the schools within the Pac-12 conference, I want you to take heed to this message, which is don't miss a moment this fall. Don't miss a moment this fall, because if you fast forward and you imagine week one a year from now, and you all go undefeated again, you'd have a ton of pride in your individual school. But what's it going to be like within your league, right? If your league goes undefeated, it's going to be cool in the Big 12 or in the Big 10 or in the ACC, but you won't have 100+ years of history. So your fan bases won't be totally embedded within that league. And hopefully one day it gets that way. You know, I'm a fan of all these schools and wish them dramatic success in their respective leagues as they move on. But I think it's important to note that what is going on right now, this very week in the Pac-12 and on the West Coast, which is every team's undefeated. Every team played pretty good for the most part. I know there's some quirky games like Arizona State and a 2.5-hour delay, et cetera. But overall, teams played extremely well. And we all thought that would be the case coming in. But now when you look at like the record books and what's happened out west, I just don't want the fans to miss a moment. Don't miss it, because you're not going to feel this way next year, even if you're undefeated, even if every league is undefeated. It's just going to feel totally different based on the history and the natural tie to the Pac-12. So I think it's easy for us to, whether it's be frustrated or be excited about what's happening in major college football. As I said, when all of it shook out, my only job is to compete, to stay so connected to the moment and not miss a beat this season. As fans, and I'm a fan of this league too, but all of you out there, whether you're in Tucson, whether you're in Tempe, whether you're in Eugene, wherever you may be, whether you're here in LA, like don't miss a minute. Don't miss a beat of what's going on right now, because this has the makings we all knew of being a special year. And what have we seen through 13 games? You know, 1 in week 0, and then of course 12 in week 1. Is that it's going to be that. So with that said, I just want to jump off there when I look back at week 1 and look ahead to week 2. I think another story that stood out to me had the USC the first 2 games. And I think when you watch them in week 2, they made that jump, that phrase we hear all the time, you make your biggest jump from week 1 to week 2. Well, they did it from week 0 to week 1. I think you saw it in all phases. Really, you saw this team take another step, and I think silence or quiet some of the doubters. Probably won't silence anybody in major college football in this era, but quiet them defensively. But I talked to their backup quarterback, Miller Moss, about something that really stood out to me. And he said that with Cliff Kingsbury and Lincoln Riley in the quarterback room, they make it though every week. It's like you're preparing for your biggest exam on a Saturday, you know, liking it to go into class. And every day in practice, every day in meetings, it's another quiz. It's another quiz. And I think it's important to note that is that we look at this league as they begin conference play against Stanford. It's going to be even more challenging than any year we've seen in this league, based on what we know of these records to be, these teams to be, of course, these rosters being, and the quarterbacks to be. And I love that thought. So as you're watching your team, remember, like, it's that exam every Saturday, and how did you prepare Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all those free moments? Because I think these games are going to be so razor thin, especially when you get to conference play throughout the majority of the league, that it's going to come down to subtle and simple decisions, and ones that these quarterbacks can trust. Can't wait to watch Caleb Williams, SC, against Stanford Saturday night, against a defense where they don't have a ton of film on. It's a totally different scheme. It's much more aggressive, I think, than Stanford has been in the past. So this is going to be a fun one to track. I have to talk about Utah. Utah seemingly, in my eyes, kind of like Oregon, they don't get a ton of love because they don't have Deion Sanders as the head coach, who, of course, is attracting a ton of attention, and he should. I'll get to them in a second. They don't have a Heisman winner coming back in Caleb Williams. They're not the Oregon State double-digit wins, and they're coming, right? You guys know how I feel about Oregon State. I said they can win the league, and I still believe that after watching them this past Sunday. But we got to talk about Utah. They came in with Bryson Barnes and Nate Johnson at quarterback, and Bryson Barnes was dramatically efficient. How about the first play of the game? Deep play action pass, touchdown to Money Parks after the game gets awarded a scholarship. I mean, the story is amazing. And then this defense down multiple starters. This team was down 8 starters at points in this game because they lost a starter early on defense. And they got after this Florida offense. This D-line had 5 sacks. Jonah Ellis is an absolute game wrecker, has a chance to be a really special player this fall. To the point of Bryson Barnes, I want to make this as a former walk-on. You see the helmet. I used to play at Pitt. And I remember the day I got offered, or awarded, I should say, a full scholarship. And I just believe this for all walk-ons, that it's such a different challenge, and I think more challenging to earn a scholarship in college than to get offered one in high school. Because you're in college, you're in a quarterback room of 4 or 5 other guys that are full scholarship players, and you're going to get the last rep naturally. Or you're a skill position player, a lineman, and there's 85 guys ahead of you that are going to get reps and opportunities prior to you. So I just think to see what Bryson Barnes did and to watch him get rewarded. We saw it in the Rose Bowl when he came in 2 years ago. We saw it at Washington State a year ago. And then you saw it on the biggest stage, you could argue, of Utah football outside of the last 2 Rose Bowls. I get the champ game were huge stages too. But the nation was watching on that Thursday night. That was a big stage and big expectations. And we know what happened a year ago. Bryson Barnes, man, you set the tone. And congrats. I think you have to talk about it. Okay, so let's talk about the tone. How about Colorado? The tone for them all offseason was "we coming." And it was loud. It was in your face. And I don't think a lot of people believed that they were going to come correct like they did against TCU. And to me, the thing that stood out the most was when it got hard, they just stuck together and kept competing. And I get they weren't perfect on defense, and they're going to be challenged as they go through this conference slate. They'll probably be challenged this weekend against Nebraska, an old Big 12 foe, which is just crazy to say, as one of them's in the Big 10 and one is about to go back to the Big 12 and is currently in the Pac-12. But regardless of all the semantics, the facts are Colorado is real. And I think we have to give Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, the credit, because we gave it to Lincoln Riley, we gave it to Dan Lanning, we gave it to Kalen DeBoer, we gave it to Jake Dickert a year ago, in terms of how quickly they got their teams to stay connected. I used to believe that it takes 18 months to really sustain a culture. And I think top to bottom, it still does. But we've been proven by SC and UW last year, going from 4-8 to the seasons they had, that you can flip it quickly. But the players have to blindly trust. And to get them to blindly trust, one, you've got to evaluate really well who you bring into the program. We got to give this staff of Coach Prime, of Deion Sanders, a ton of credit for how they evaluated the people and the players they brought in. A lot of times in year one, where you can bring in a bunch of new faces, you're just bringing in bodies to fill holes. They brought in players that bought in. And that is coaching. That is coaching. That is not talent. That is not talent acquisition. That is coaching and evaluating. So I want to give their staff a ton of credit. And then the players. In this era, where you got 2 legit stars, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, on the field and, of course, off the field, everything they're doing. You see them all over the internet all the time. They all bought in too. And when it got hard, they didn't have to. And I love that. From freshmen to transfers to a couple of the guys that hung around, just give them their props. It's really amazing. Are they going to go undefeated? Who knows? Are they going to go to a title game? Who knows? But after that performance, back and forth, if they lost, we all would have said, hey, what a great effort. But they pulled it off. They pulled it off. I can't wait to watch them play at 9 a.m. Folsom is always rocking, regardless of record. I called a lot of games there when they were not good, when they had 3 wins in November, 4 wins in November, and now they are good. I mean, it's going to be a different level. Big props to them. DJU, got to give you your love, man. Love what you said post-game, after the game. You said, quote, I had fun. And I think that can't be overstated. I wrote the book, 5-Star QB, along with Joey Roberts, and it was about 5-star quarterbacks. And majority of them, in their voices, in their own words, in our book, talked about how they lost the joy and the fun. Bo Nix was one of those guys, recaptured at Oregon. DJ Uiagalelei lost that, I believe, at Clemson, recaptured it. Amazing, man. Major props to you. And then UW. I'll be there this weekend with Ted Robinson, Michael Monarney, and our crew. Schematically, they're as fun to watch as any team I've seen in a long time. Offensively, they attack you. Feels like they're running downhill at times. Defensively, it's almost like they're telling you where to throw the ball. And I know they're not showing much. Boise State was a tough first quarter, ended up breaking it open. We'll see what happens this weekend against Tulsa. Then they go on the road. on Peacock, I believe, to play Michigan State. So I can't wait to get up there and watch this team. And again, schematically, you got to give them a lot of credit. They looked as though they're in midseason form in week one. They, to me, had the most impressive, in the dialogue, most impressive game one. I think you got to talk about Colorado, you got to talk about Utah, but they're in that first tier out west for teams. And then lastly, I got to give some love to the Paris Musketeers. You see the hat back there? Finished the season winning 4 straight, European League of Football. Kyle Sweet, you remember him from Washington State, balling out. What a season for him. What a season for this team. This is a team that I'm so happy to be a small part of. It's a really cool group of football, like-minded creatives, entrepreneurs. They came together, organized this team, and we had a hell of a season in Paris. So if you're in Europe next summer, let me know. We'll make sure we get you to a Paris Musketeer game. Congrats to them and Mark Mattioli, our head coach, on what an epic finish. All right, we're not finished just yet. Hit subscribe, hit the button. We come here every single week. If you have any questions, just hit me up on social media. I'll try to make sure I build in a question segment at the end of every one of these conversations. With that, enjoy your week 2. Peace.